Welcome to the Russell Hantz Show. Today we bring on producer Jon Kroll. I'm very excited to have him because in addition of being a great guy, he is a major player in television and he's pretty much done it all. I'm going to name a few projects he's done. You ready? Big Brother, The Amazing Race, Utopia, and he's got a hit show in their second season on Fox at 9, 8 Central, starring John Cena, called American Grit. I started watching this show recently, and I love it. It's quickly became one of my favorite shows. It airs every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, go watch it. John is one of the nicest guys in the industry, and definitely one of the most prolific producers. Here's his interview. How are you doing, man?
Just fine, Russell. I'm really glad to be here.
Man, that's an exciting show. And by the way, it's on Fox Sundays at 9, 8 Central. Yeah, man, that's a real fun show for me. It's crazy how the show implements, in my world, my little Survivor world or reality TV world, it implements the two things that's mostly my listeners listen to. That's Big Brother and that is Survivor. Because you have the cast members that end up in a house, and you have the drama, and then you also have what's going on the like an island. It's not an island, but whatever they're in the woods, where they do extreme challenges to where they're either, they're suffering. It's a mental challenge, an emotional challenge that you have to have some sort of grit to be able to get through the challenge. And what do you think about that? Like, when y'all first, did you create the show? Is it you that created it, or you just the executive producer to it?
I'm the executive producer and one of the two showrunners on the show, along with Alicia Rossiter. Okay. And we work with Left Field Pictures, the production company. And I've done both seasons. Alicia joined us this second season. And, I was involved with shaping the show. I didn't create the show. It was very much a team effort. But it's impossible for us not to be influenced by our past. And I produced 3 seasons of Survivor. I produced 3 seasons of Big Brother. I've been a fan of Survivor from the beginning. I've never worked on it. And I've tried to bring a little bit of everything that I work on to a show like this. But yeah, you've described it well. They are living together. It's got a lot of drama, but it's also got a lot of competition and difficult challenges as well to prove grit.
Yeah, because I have my favorites, of course. I'll tell you right now my favorite story, and we'll go over it a little bit why. I like Melanie. I like George Foreman the Fourth, of course, and Gigi. Is that a shock to you that I like Gigi?
I don't think that's a shock to me because you're kind of an unconventional guy, Russell. I'm a big fan of yours. I followed you over the years, and I think you probably appreciate the fact that she's the ultimate fish out of water in this environment.
Exactly. And, and that's exactly why I like her so much. And, Gigi, it's crazy because you wouldn't see a girl usually that looks like that or acts like that on this type of show. And I want to break it through with my guest that's watching. If you guys haven't watched it, it's Sunday at 9 and 8 Central. You need to check it out. Let me explain to you how one of the challenges went. It was very interesting to me to see it break down how it did. You had like a 4-part challenge, and at the beginning of the challenge, it's 4 teams, and they're all competing in the challenge. At the beginning of the challenge, you had to wear a dog collar, and after every leg, whoever was the lucky one to press the button to shock them. I'm sure they were excited to shock every single time. I would have been, but when they shocked them, they had to take that. They had to take it for the team. It's like, like you always say, you got to take one for the team sometimes. The second leg of it was drinking a milkshake that we probably have every morning in the South, which is just a little bit of gator tail grinded up in a blender, which they had to drink, which was great protein, by the way. And you've had a couple of them threw up, so it was fairly disgusting, I'm sure. But then, this whole time they're doing it so fast, they have to get through it, finish the shake, go to the next challenge, almost like some Survivor challenge or Big Brother challenges. And then the next challenge was crazy because you had to take off your clothes. Now, the crazy thing for me was you didn't know who was going to choose what, did you?
No, I mean, you have to try to use as much preparation as you can for this, but you also have to be willing to accept whatever happens. Our thinking was that the men in the group would be more likely to take the shock collar because they would endure the pain and be rather chivalrous about it and be able to take a little bit more punishment.
Right.
We thought some of the men might also down the alligator shakes. And that left the last two, which was get naked and shave your head, more likely that the women would take. And we figured that the viewers would enjoy that.
That's crazy psychology how y'all do, the producers, man. I got to remember that next time I play one of those games. And
every one of these shows, Russell, has a challenge genius behind it. Danny Schrader, our supervising producer for challenges, has been doing this for years and years on shows like Biggest Loser and Superhuman and things like that. And so he comes up with a lot of this stuff, and he works with me and Alicia, the other executive producer, to try to shape them and provide the most story. But a lot of thought goes into how can we maximize this? How can this lead to the most repercussions, the most drama, the most personal struggle, and the most demonstrating grit?
Yeah, and what brings me to the last leg of this challenge. Well, first of all, I want to say that Gigi is the one that got naked. So if you haven't seen the show, go check it out. She's a little cutie. So that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about the last challenge, just saying. Y'all were also lucky to get that happen. You thought it was going to be the dudes that got naked, didn't you?
I personally think having our 300-pound guy, Richard, get naked was every bit as dramatic as Gigi getting naked, although I'm glad that you enjoyed that.
I disagree, but okay. So now we have the last leg of the challenge, and that was to shave your head. Now, the girl that they happened to have a girl that happened to win the challenge, that happened to have the best, prettiest, longest hair there. And she's the one that had to shave her head. And so you guys know what's going on. If she shaves her head, that keeps her safe and her team safe from elimination. So I'm sitting there as a viewer like, don't shave your head. Even the girl I'm talking to was like, would you make me shave my head? Like, would you be okay with that if I shaved my head? I'm like, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be okay with it. But so I'm sure there's other people that's watched that. It's like, don't shave it. But then the competitor side of you wants to say, yes, shave it. So she was a trooper and she shaved her head. I couldn't believe it. And when she did, before she shaved her head, she says that she wants to donate it to a charity that takes in that kind of thing. Would you shave your hair? Which happened to be, at this point, it was Wigs for Kids. So, but before we get into where she went and how that went down, when she went to shave her head and she said that to John, did you immediately like, okay, we gotta do something about this? Like, we can implement this into the show. I mean, how did that go down?
Well, we're very blessed to have an incredible host in John Cena, and he very quickly, as soon as she said, may my hair be donated, he said, I'll make sure of it. So when John talks, we listen. And of course, we had producers before that challenge was even over, already checking out where we could arrange for the hair to be donated and making sure we could make a moment of it. I mean, John has more than 500 Make-A-Wishes. He's one of the most charitable celebrities in the business. So of course we had to make that happen.
Yeah, man, that was a great moment. And I like when you guys, the executive producers and producers come up with a way to implement great TV in your show and also implement doing a great thing for, a great charity organization like Wigs for Kids. So what y'all did, y'all went and got her and took her down to the charity, and she was able to see exactly what happens with her hair. Correct?
Yeah, she met two kids who came to the charity to get some donated hair, and she was able to bring her hair to be a part of that. And it was a really emotional moment for her and for John. We have John Cena tears in our show, believe it or not. And it was a really incredible moment for all of us. There were producer tears too. I mean, it was an amazing moment, and it's so great when we have an opportunity in our business to sort of do something that's, for the good of humanity, because mostly we create entertainment. And this was just an incredible opportunity. And what's great, Russell, is the cast put together this whole Grit Cares campaign and raised a bunch of additional money for kids with cancer after the show was over. It was just amazing what this turned into.
Yeah, that's some cool stuff because man, we do these shows and I have this show now and you're constantly doing different things and sometimes we take that for granted. There's other things out there with a child that's dying of cancer that lost her hair and maybe other kids are making fun of her or this or that and it's so tragic in their life and we really have it good. We have it good and we need to always remember the ones that have it less fortunate and be able to do things like that for them. So I applaud you guys for doing that.
Well, thank you very much. We have a good inspiration in John Cena, who's been doing that his whole life, and he always pushes us to do more things like that.
That's good. Maybe you can talk him to coming on my show when it's all said and done, man. That would be a good one. Even though you're just as good. You're just as good. But I like to, that's some good stuff. It shows his character and who he is as a man, not just, because he implemented that and then you guys made it happen, so it was a good moment for the show.
You've got to be nimble and flexible as a producer and adjust what you thought was your carefully laid out plan. You have to adjust that based on what happens on your show, or it's just lazy. If you just do whatever you plan to do in the first place and don't make changes based on how things transpire, you're being a lazy producer. So we always try and make adjustments when something happens on the show that gives us an opportunity to do something we never anticipated.
Yeah, and it was a great moment. I like that. So I talked about Gigi. I like Gigi. I talked about Melanie. She's got some spunk there, man. And you know what? Just to let you know, if you see her, you can tell her she's even more beautiful without her hair.
I will tell her, and Russell, I'll connect you with these people on Twitter and social media because they're all, as you might imagine, very active during the show.
Well, thanks,
including
man.
your buddy Gigi and your buddy George Foreman the Fourth.
Yes, for sure, man. Connect me with them. We'll follow them on Twitter. We'll have them on the show. As soon as they're able to come on the show, and especially Melanie, I want to talk to her about because. The little girl that she donated her hair to, she passed away, and it showed you guys. Was that who that was? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's who that was. And the nice thing is last weekend, which was when the episode that we dedicated to Terea, the girl, Terea Garvin, the girl who passed away, several of the cast flew down to Savannah and hosted a big charity event where they raised a bunch of additional money for kids with cancer and in her name, which was really a cool thing.
What was her name again?
Her name is Terea Garvin.
Terea Garvin.
Terea is the
okay.
It's a pretty cool thing that they did.
Yeah, just to let her family know if they're watching, we're praying for her family, and we all have hard times, and we can get through it. So that was a good thing that you guys did, and. I'll give you a thumbs up for that. And just for that alone, you should get 20 million more viewers the next episode.
From your lips to Nielsen's ears.
That's right. So, okay, man, now we're getting into the big boy. Guys, George Foreman, the George Foreman, his son is on this show, George Foreman the Fourth. I got to say, man, when I heard that, and you can't tell from appearances that it would, you can't sit there like they did with my brother on Big Brother was, oh, that's Russell Hance's brother. It has to be. You can't do that with him. He does not, you could see some similarities, but there's no way you can choose him from a crowd saying that's George Foreman's son.
Well, the funny thing is, I did a series several years ago for TV Land with George Foreman and all of his kids called Family Foreman. And I met George the Fourth at that time, but he was in college and he wasn't around very much. And all of a sudden he applied for American Grit. And I called him up and I said, hey, George, remember me, this is my show. I have to, of course, notify Fox Broadcast Standards because it's a competition show. I have to notify them. I know this guy before, but he came on the show and he wanted to come on incognito. He didn't want people to know that he was George Foreman's son. He says, I'll tell people eventually, but I want to be evaluated for myself. I lived in the shadow of my father. So his need to find his grit was to be seen as an individual, not as George Foreman's son. Everyone on the show had a different thing. Gigi is trying to not be seen as a little Twinkie. Melanie is trying to recover from a broken romance. And George is trying to not be seen as, the least important George Foreman. And that's why he came on as just George. And nobody knew until a week or so in, he started to let the news out who he was.
Man, it was funny when you have another guy trying to show him how to fight. I was like, wait, is he showing him some boxing moves? This is funny.
Well, I will tell you this. Coming up in a later episode, George will be giving some boxing lessons to someone else once it's revealed who his father is. So that's a little spoiler for you of something to come. If you look hard enough at my Instagram, I throw out a few little, not important for the outcome, but spoilers for people to enjoy. I'm a photographer and I shoot behind the scenes photos. So I like to spill those out on Instagram to give people a little tease of what's to come sometime.
Oh yeah, that's fun. It's fun. And it draws you in. It makes you want to see if you were right, if you figured it out, who that person is. But man, I got to say, George is a huge influence in my life. All my college years, it was the era of Foreman, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. So I can remember, and I'm sure you remember too, when it was just as big or not bigger than in MMA. It was big time boxing at a prime time, and I remember I couldn't wait to watch Foreman. And my two favorites of all times, I don't get starstruck much, man. I've seen some stars, and I don't get starstruck much, but there's two people that I would get starstruck, and that's Foreman and Evander Holyfield. And Foreman just happened to live in Houston, so never know, he could come on the show after his son does. Shoot, that'd be really cool.
I can certainly connect you with George IV. The original George, I can't speak for, but George IV is traveling with his dad. His dad does a show for NBC called Better Late Than Never, and he's traveling with him on that show. But he's going to be back shortly, and I can absolutely get him on your show.
Shoot, maybe we could talk about George Foreman's new show. So that's what this is about. It's a platform, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry I even mentioned it. I'm all about American grit.
Oh, no. Yeah. No, I am too. That's what this is about. This is about American grit. And with the viewers, you said earlier that you was a producer of Big Brother. And
yep.
And also, so the viewers will know, you was also a producer of Amazing Race. And
I did two
Utopia,
seasons of Amazing Race.
Yeah, I enjoyed Utopia. So I don't know how that didn't get picked up, but I enjoyed that. So you are in my world. You're in my wheelhouse, man.
But do you remember, Russell, we first met online because I also had a long-running house flipping show called Flipping Vegas while you were doing your house flipping show.
Wow. I thought that, see, that's another story, but I thought Org producer that created, Max was his name, that created Flipping Vegas or something like that. That was your show.
No, Flipping Vegas was my baby. We did 4 seasons of that. So, So yeah, you and I originally met online because I think we gave each other's shows a shout out or something like that.
Right.
So we've had this podcast has been a long time coming because we've tracked each other for a long time now.
Of course it has.
And as I told you, I've never worked on Survivor, but I've been a big fan from the beginning. In fact, I'm a big believer that Survivor changed the way that people watch television today because it proved that the hero can die and the villain can win.
You see, you're talking to the wrong person about that, man, because I sure didn't win as the villain.
Well, the villain can't win every time, or it would be too predictable. But
right.
I think that everyone, in the first season, everybody when Richard Hatch won was shocked to see that someone like that could win, who they would not expect, who was the undisputed villain. And it paved the way for the evil Dr. Will Kirby's on Big Brother and so many great villains like you over the years.
Yeah.
You know what? You've won in life, even though you didn't win Survivor.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hey, man, I got to ask you this question. This has been on my mind ever since we was going to do this podcast. Has Russell Hantz ever came across your desk to where you're like, you heard me, and like maybe doing some little show here and there or something like that? Has that ever happened?
Listen, you've been on my radar for so long, Russell. I watched you on Survivor.
Right.
I watched your house flipping show. As far as I'm concerned, you're reality royalty.
Whoa, wow, man. Appreciate that. That's pretty impressive coming from the Emmy Award winner.
Listen, I may be an Emmy Award winner, but I was not the runner-up on Survivor.
I don't know, man. I probably would rather take the Emmy than the runner-up on Survivor. I'm just saying. That's a pretty high honor. That's a big deal. I think that a lot of my viewers are going to be questioning this. They probably want to know this answer ever since you've said it. What seasons were you the executive producer of Big Brother?
I was seasons 2, 3, and 4. So the first season was done in a very different way. So I was part of the team that sort of turned it into the Big Brother that we see today, and I did seasons 2, 3, and 4.
Wow!
Ever since then, I am known to be one of the executive producers who's most available on social media. So your listeners can ask me questions. I tend to answer a lot of the questions I get asked on Twitter and on Instagram. So have at it. I'm not hard to find.
All right, guys. What's your Twitter so they can follow you?
My Twitter is HippieKid, HippyKid. I was born on a hippie commune in Northern California before I went straight and rebelled against my parents and started making television and married an Air Force general's daughter. And my Instagram is Jon F. Kroll. And the F like Frank does not stand for my middle name. It stands for the fact that I am foul-mouthed and politically incorrect.
Are you politically incorrect? Because aren't you a professor at USC?
Yeah, but you know what? They don't pay me enough to make me politically correct. I do teach at USC, but if they fire me, it's not like I'm going to lose a lot of money. I just do it because I love doing it.
Man, I got to ask you, man, how the hell do you have time to be a professor when you have all this going on?
Well, I don't have kids, and so that helps. I have a wife and 2 dogs, and you know what? I make my own rules. So if I want to take time out to teach and not do a show for a little while, I do that. And then another show comes along. I like to do a lot of different things, and I travel a lot. And that's just the way I've chosen to lead my life. And I don't look back, and I don't regret anything.
Yeah, what you a professor of?
Well, I have a few shows I regret, but we won't talk about those.
Right. What you a professor of?
I teach television production in the master's producing program, the Stark producing program at USC.
Do you ever see any? We'll get back to American Grit. Do you ever see any kids that come into your class that you would know as a producer? You kind of have that casting agent in your mind already built in there. It's like a machine. Do you ever see anybody in there that you're like, that person would be great on my show?
Well, not in my class so much. In life, I see people like that all the time, and I am not above approaching them and saying, "Hey, you'd be good on one of my shows," because I think that when you see someone make a spontaneous reaction in a way that they're not auditioning for a show, that's more interesting than they walk into the room and that's what they're trying to do.
Right. What do you look for when if you guys, I'm sure, are going to get picked up for a 3rd season? Hopefully y'all do. What do you look for in maybe somebody that's listening right now could be a future contestant on American Grit? What do you look for in that contestant for that type of show?
Well, I think the most important thing you look for in any show are people who are unforgettable and people who aren't acting like they want to be TV stars. They're just being who they are. Right. But for American Grit in particular, we're looking for people who have questions that need to be answered about their lives. Their life is at a turning point, and they have to be able to express that in a way that makes us believe that perhaps by being on the show, we could change the course of their life. And what you're going to see, Russell, as you get deeper into American Grit, is you are going to see several people's lives change forever. I mean, the longer they're there, the more they have an experience. And I don't want to spoil it by mentioning names, but there are a number of people who whose lives are not the same now than when they went in there in very tangible and dramatic ways.
Well,
so we're looking for people who have that potential.
Yeah, man, and that's relevant what Melanie just did. You know, by shaving her beautiful hair and donating it to someone that could really use it. That's an emotional. You're never going to forget about that. With anything you do in life.
Well, and I think also with a cast, you want to have, really different types of people. I mean, I don't think Gigi would have suggested that she would have donated her hair, because she would have been more about the loss of it. She's wired a different way. For Melanie, that's the first place that she went. And if it was Hannah, then she probably would have cut herself on the clippers, because she's a walking disaster everywhere she goes.
Right. Yeah, so man, that's good, man. I'm glad to hear that, and it's going in the right direction, I think. Now, the very first challenge you guys.
Hey, Russell, something I'll tell you. We're taping this right before the next episode. By the time people hear this, they will have seen the next episode where Hannah takes a trip to the hospital. It's a very dramatic episode.
Wow.
I can tell you about it. It was in the promos. But we've got a very dramatic episode this weekend, which is our first double elimination, as well as a trip to the hospital that people will not soon forget. So it's there's a lot of stuff happening every week.
All right, so y'all's first challenge, which you had, was you had them all hanging by their feet, and they dropped into the water. Now, Survivor does little challenges like that where you're like tied to a wheel, and the wheel goes round and round and dunks you in the water. But in this challenge, it dunks each person in the water, it looks like about to their waist. And if they want out, they can pull a cord, correct? And they just drop.
That's correct. I have to tell you, Russell, because you're from the South and you'll appreciate this. I really wanted them to call this the grit baptism. And I wanted it to be like, the first season of American Grit was in Washington State. Second season, okay, we're in Georgia. This is time to get the grit baptism. I pitched a whole idea that we would have a gospel choir. We'd be doing baptism. And everyone just looked at me like I was crazy and said, we're a network show. We can't be that un-PC. But I wanted it to be the grit baptism. So at least I thought you might appreciate it.
Oh, that would have worked in Georgia, man. That would have worked. You see, they're too conservative, man. Sometimes you got to think out the box like that, but that's why you're successful. So when they dumped them in the water, let's talk a little bit about the safety production part. I counted 6 lifeguards in the water with each person, maybe in between 2 people. So what was the safety in place? What if I've always wondered about this because I was directly involved in this kind of stuff. And with Survivor, there's no lifeguards or no nothing. It's craziness. I'm so shocked that nobody's ever got hurt with that kind of thing. But what are the safety implements that's in place? Like, let's say that control that John had didn't bring them back up, like it failed.
These things are tested, and there's backup systems as well, and we're monitoring it very, very closely. We have a whole safety team that's in the control room watching everything. There's people watching live, and there, of course, are lifeguards in the water. Every challenge is different. But nobody wants, to have a serious injury on one of these things. So we're prepared if people pass out. We're prepared for if someone conks their head. We're prepared for any number of different things that can happen. And of course, all these challenges, I'm sure are tested with volunteers, usually from the production department, who test them. We get a sense of, do we think we can do this without anyone passing out? We have medical professionals.
Right.
So we have a whole series of steps we go through for every single one of these. And we have a whole safety team that gives us that checklist that they will not sign off on us doing the challenge until we complete that checklist.
Yeah, and so y'all have a dream team. Like Survivor has a team that actually competes in the challenge. They call them the dream team. Y'all have a dream team on American Grit that goes through the challenges first, or is that how y'all do it?
Well, I think it's more for camera that it happens on Survivor. I don't know that I haven't been there, but this is more for safety purposes that we do it, and to basically work out the kinks to make sure it's not too easy or not too hard or something like that. There's certainly certain ways that there are certain challenges that you end up seeing that it's way too easy, and you have to come up for a way to make it last longer and make it harder, and vice versa. So it's more about gaming and about safety. So we make sure, should they wear helmets, that kind of thing. It's not, and that way also with those people, we can start doing it slowly. We can then do it more quickly and then get up to the actual game speed. Yeah. So we work out all those kinks before we do any challenge like this.
Yeah, and with Survivor, and I'm sure you the same, you have to do these challenges to where you know that they actually work, or that this isn't going to fail, or like the different puzzles that you have to do. So, and you're right, most of it is for footage purposes, but you also have to know if that challenge is gonna be able to work,
Well, you also have to be prepared for, after doing all that it doesn't work, and how do you adjust your production to accommodate that? So I've actually been on shows, including this one, where a mechanism has failed. You have to restart the challenge, and that's where you work with broadcast standards to make sure it's fair for everybody and that sort of thing. But you have to just be prepared for all these things, because let's face it, these shows are a walking, living, breathing research and development department. These are things that have never been done before in many cases.
Right. When they go, man, it seems like for me, if I was an executive producer, I would be cringing the entire time that dunk them in the water thing is over. Because it's like, okay, it's over. Let's get this right. Let's not have any failures on this one. Do you feel like that, or you're so confident in your team that you just have no worries and it's going to work?
Oh, I'm always concerned about it, but I'm more focusing on playing the what if game. I'm prepared for what do we do if something doesn't go right? What do we do if a challenge happens too quickly? How can we cut it so it's more dramatic? I'm thinking of what it's going to be like in post. I'm less worried about it, whether or not it's going to go off, because that's either going to happen or if it's not. I'm more thinking about what I'm going to do if it doesn't go off in the way that we planned.
Yeah. When y'all picked this cast, were you a part of the casting to choose the cast? Were you a part of that?
Yes, I sit on every single casting session for what's called, as casting finals.
Right.
The 50 to 75 people who fly to Los Angeles, who go through a rigorous testing of all kinds, including more interviews. I'm in on all those sessions, and I have some come to Jesus conversations with people who might be a little bit difficult, saying, hey, you're going to have to play ball if you're doing this, because I don't want people who don't want to be here. So yeah, I'm part of that entire process.
That's cool, man. So if somebody wants to get on American Grit, what does it take?
It's the Grit casting team is through Left Field Pictures, the production company. I think they just really have to wait to see if the show gets picked up and a new casting call goes out. But I think that that we're always going to be looking for new people with great stories to tell, and we want different stories. I mean, just the people that you mentioned. Look at the difference between Melanie, Gigi, and George.
Right.
They all have different reasons they need their grit. They're very different kinds of people, and from a casting standpoint, you meet Gigi. And you instantly say that's someone who's great on this show, because she's not who you would expect. But Melanie is someone you have to spend some time talking to get to know where her pain comes from. What is she trying to recover from? She's a little bit more of a slow burn. You don't notice Melanie as much in the first episode, but in the second episode, of course, she gets your attention right away.
Yeah, and so y'all really look for people that's maybe at their worst point in their life, and they need something. They need some grit to get through that. I like to call that wisdom, that we learn from those bad things that's happened in life. But you have the whole platform to where they can, if they're struggling in life, whatever it is, like you said, Gigi has totally different situation in her life than Melanie or George Foreman. It's all different, things that they're going through in their life that they want to get past. And that's specifically what you guys look for.
Yeah, we're looking at, I wouldn't even say it has to be the worst point in their lives. We're looking at a pivotal point in their lives. We're looking at a time when they're at a crossroads and they have to choose one direction or another. And we're really fortunate to find a lot of people like that. But we had a pretty rigorous number of checklist items that they had to, to adhere to. Plus, you want a certain number of men and women. You want there to be diversity of age, of ethnicity, and of part of the country that they're from. So there's so many different things that we look for. And one of the most important things Russell, is really that you want people that you can kind of unpeel like an onion over the course of it, who show you something different in episode 7 than you saw in episode 2, a different side of their personality. So I think that's something you're looking for as well, as depth of character.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing, though, man. It's no wonder it changed their life. No wonder earlier you said that it's changed people for the better, because this is all positive stuff.
Yeah, and by the way, if you work on a show that really has a lot of heart to it, like I think this one does, it doesn't just change them, it changes us. I mean, John Cena is such a pro and has such a big heart. Alicia, my partner on the project, she used to say his heart is his biggest muscle of all.
Oh.
But I like to think he makes me a better man. I mean, I see what he does with charitable efforts and how dedicated he is to his work. And so I think the cast feeds off of him. We haven't even talked about our military mentors, the cadre, but they all feed off of John as well. They're all fascinating individuals who are really accomplished as well. So there's a lot of inspiration that goes on around. But let's face it, there's a lot of chaos and madness as well, because these are some people who really need to make changes in their lives, and a lot of it's due to their own behavior, and they show a lot of that behavior on the show.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about them a little bit, your coaches. Can you tell our viewers their names and what they do?
Sure. So we have John Burke, who's an Army drill sergeant. We have Grady Powell, who's a Green Beret, Army Green Beret. And we have Chloe Mondesir and Ricky Long, who are both Marines. So you've got 4 different people with very different types of leadership styles. But you can imagine our drill sergeant has a very different style than our Marine mom.
Right.
And their teams start to reflect that. And in the first episode, as you saw, and viewers can still see it, it's still on demand, they pick their teams, and they very much pick their teams in their own image. Some pick teams that are super strong, and some want to pick people that they help. And that leads to drama between the cadre themselves as they start disputing what is the purpose of us being here.
Do y'all sit down with the coaches and do y'all tell them, okay, this is what you need to do, or this is what I know y'all not telling them what to do, but do you tell them, like, this is what we're looking for? If they need more grit than the other, that's who we're looking for. That's who we want you to push. Do y'all sit down and talk about that? Or is there, as a competitor myself, if I was one of the coaches, I would want to win one of my people to win the whole thing. So my ultimate goal would be strategic, like get rid of their strongest on every team. Because when you lose a challenge, guys, there's 4 sets of teams. When somebody loses a challenge, what happens is the winner of that challenge chooses one person from each of the losing teams, which gives it 3 people. And those 3 people compete in a challenge. And the loser of that challenge goes to leaves the game. So I just was wondering if any of them playing strategically, or are they just really trying to put somebody up that has grit or that needs grit?
Well, there's two different questions here that I'll answer. The first one is what we tell them. And what we tell them, we try to let people, they can make their own decisions, because this is a prize show with a game. They ultimately have final say in things. The one thing that we ask for them when they send the 3 people to elimination is we tell them, send an interesting matchup of people you want to see competing against each other. Don't just send, 2 super strong people and 1 weak person and see that person be crushed. That's not interesting for viewers. And what's the point of that? There's no real point of it. You're going to send that person away feeling like crap.
Correct.
So we say, look for pick the 3 people who you think are the heart and soul of their team, or pick the 3 people you think need to be challenged by being faced with elimination, or pick the 3 people who you think is the war of the strongest, but make it interesting. But beyond that, they can make their own decisions, and they have very different strategies about that. And they have very different morality about what they think is right and what isn't. And that leads to drama between them. If we told them what to do, we wouldn't get drama between them, but there's lots of drama between them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so. Y'all do not tell them, hey, we want this person, this person, this. You give them the right to choose.
Yeah, they have absolutely final say. We like them to think about it. We like them to have a reason for it, not just say, oh, you three. So we talk it through with them, but ultimately it is their decision and their decision alone who gets sent to elimination.
That's good. Okay, man. So you have you're in the entertainment business, and I found out a little bit about you. I'm sure you knew this was coming. You was raised in a commune, and you didn't have TV or electricity.
Yeah, that's true. That's why my Twitter handle is Hippie Kid, because it's a blast from my past. I have no hair, and I'm married to an Air Force general's daughter. So I've changed my ways or rebelled against my parents. But yeah, I grew up at a hippie commune surrounded by naked people who were trying to create an alternative community, and with lots of people who had nouns for names like rainbow and river and redwood.
Well, I ain't saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, how the hell did you get into entertainment when you wasn't even entertained besides the naked people walking around your commune? You had no TV, man, or no electricity. Is that real? Does that happen?
Well, that's very true. What happened was a family friend was a filmmaker, and so I actually had a Super 8 film camera. I got a few years on you, Russell. I'm in my mid-50s, so I ran around with a little film camera. This was before the days of video, and I used to make movies before I had electricity. You didn't need electricity to use that, so. I was doing that, and then by the time I went to college, I was ready to go to film school. I wanted to do more of that, and then I started watching a hell of a lot of TV to make up for lost time.
Man, they may make a book about you. That's pretty good stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I like to think that a lot of my ideas and the way I approach things aren't tainted by as much saturation with television early in my life, and I also, when I do shows like Big Brother or Utopia, I'm very attuned to social dynamics in a communal living situation, which figures very prominently into these shows. I'll tell you something, Russell, that's kind of interesting. When we were doing Utopia, I told all of my fellow producers, all of the fights will be about food, okay? Right. Fights are always about food. And they said, no, they don't have a scarcity of food. It won't be about food. They're trying to create a government. They're creating an ideal society. I said, you say what you want. I live this. All the fights will be about food. What were all the fights about? Food. Right. How much money they were going to spend on food. What they were going to eat. What they were going to. Because that's the go-to thing that people fight about.
Yeah. And does your family still? Do they watch any of your stuff, or there's still no TV, no electricity?
No, they've moved. My parents live in the city now. They're up in their 80s, but they are big fans of all my shows. And my mom calls me after every episode airs and tells me how much she loves it and what she liked about it, which is become a family tradition and obviously is very nice. But yeah, they watch every episode of every show that I do.
Well, man, that's pretty interesting. But I want to ask you one last question for the. I'm sure the Big Brother group and fans are going to want to know this. Do you keep in touch with any of your old Big Brother castmates, and who are they?
Sure. I've maintained a friendship with Will Kirby from season 2.
Oh, okay.
Ever since then, we've stayed in touch. We actually pitched a show together once. I consider him a friend, and I've known him for a long time. I've stayed in touch with Marcellus from season 3 quite a bit. I'm social media friends with, and we trade messages, and they're supportive of the other things I'm doing with people like June, people like Lisa from season 2 or season 3,
right?
And then I developed a friendship, even though he wasn't in one of my seasons, with Evil Dick Donato.
Right.
We were introduced by mutual friends, and even though I wasn't on any of his seasons, we became friendly as well. So he and I poke jabs at each other
Right.
on Twitter and have a good time together.
Right, I see that every once in a while.
I have a lot of friends from Big Brother, and of course, many friends behind. Yeah, many friends behind the camera as well. I still know Allison and Rich, who run the show quite well, and many people who I hired on the show still work there. So
wow.
I feel very close connection to the show.
Okay, man. Well, if you pitched a show with Will Kirby, I got the perfect show for you. You ready here? It's more of an MTV type show.
What's that?
It's called Hands in Your Pants.
Okay. I'm right there with both of you.
Yeah, more of an MTV type thing, but Hands in Your Pants, man. That's the next Bachelor or Bachelorette type show.
Well, he did 90210, so I don't know how discriminating he is with his choices. So maybe he'll do it.
Right. No, I don't want him on it. I want you to be my developer of the whole show. We just get a bunch of hot girls and we call it Hands in Your Pants.
Well, Russell, you have your people called my people, and we'll make that
right.
happen.
Yeah, let's see how far that idea goes. All right, man. Well, hey, man, I sure appreciate you coming on the show. We heard a lot of great things about American Grit. It's on Fox at 8 Central. I love it, personally. And this is the executive producer, Jon Kroll. It was an enjoyment talking to you, man. And we need to get Foreman on the show and Gigi. Those are the two that I want.
I'll get to work on that, and I appreciate you giving us the plugs for Sunday nights on Fox, as you said. And it's we have a lot of big drama coming. There are some real shockers, and we wanted people who would stir trouble and make bad decisions. And boy, did we get them!
Right.
So you can look forward to many more bad decisions.
That's good, man. I'm excited to watch it, and maybe later on when it's all over, you can come back and we can talk about the show a little bit more.
You call me anytime, Russell.
All right, John. Well, appreciate talking to me, man. You have a good night.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, bro. Okay, that was my interview with Jon Kroll. See what I mean? He's a pretty cool guy. He's one of my favorite guests, and I hope I can have him back on. I know we're going to get more people from American Grit. And like I said in my intro, go watch the show. I think you'll really like it. Special thanks to Fox and Jon Kroll again. All right, guys, this has been fun. If you haven't signed up to be a patron, go do that right now. Go to patreon.com/RussellHantz. That's patreon.com/RussellHantz. Thanks for the support. We've got more episodes coming your way with more Big Brother 19 coverage and a special A-list actor coming to talk about Survivor. Stay tuned.